gavel. I really probably should have a bigger one.
Too late. That it's limited by statute.
I see. Okay, good morning. This meeting is now called to order. Ms. Gaynor, can you introduce everyone for us? Listen, there's less people in here today than there was yesterday. It should be easy.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce our guests today. I'll start with Barry Maka, our General Counsel, Lee Kidwell is Director of Internal Audit, Vice President Keith Lamb, Associate Vice President Matthew Clark, Vice President Marilyn Foley, Chris Stovall is our Controller. We'll move back here to the back corner, Charlie Carr, Director of Athletics, and Dr. David Carlson, Chair of the Faculty Senate, Provost Betty Stewart. We have with us today Dr. Steve Garrison and Dr. Linda Beasy, along with students Maddie Parker, Alexis Gay, and Julia Brady. Okay. And we also have with us Angie Ray, who is representing the Staff Senate, and Police Chief Patrick Coggins. Back here in this corner, we have Dawn Fisher, who is Director of Human Resources, Lana Sweeten-Schultz, who's reporter for the Times Record, Vicki Ashlock, Executive Assistant to the President.
Thank you. Very good. So again, welcome. Thank the board for their participation yesterday in our committee meetings. Just a reminder to silence and turn off your cell phones as the meeting is being streamed live on the internet. Sam, don't worry, I was also guilty. Before we begin today, I want to acknowledge Megan Peeler, our student regent this past year. This is Megan's final board meeting, and we want to thank her for her service to the university. I also want to mention that at last month's honors banquet, Megan was named Outstanding Senior Woman and a Hardin Scholar. Megan, you've been outstanding. So thank you again for your service, and the student body is well represented by your thank you again. We also have some visitors today who, along with Megan, are members of the MSU Model UN team, and I understand they want to take a minute and say something to the board. So, you guys, your floor.
You can go up to the front so everyone in TV land can see.
Well,
Web land.
Internet land.
Hi everyone, I'm Maddie Parker, now as head delegate for UN. I'm Alexis Gay, and I'm Julia Brady. We just wanted to formally thank you for giving us your support and funding for Model UN. Through this organization, I was able to learn communication skills and also public speaking.
Also through this endeavor, I was able to learn about different cultures because a lot of schools from a lot of international come to the competition, and I got to learn a lot about different cultures. And I also got to learn teamwork, and it really helped me in my plan for law school. So.
Fantastic. Thank you guys.
You can say.
You got something? Go ahead.
No pressure.
Oh, I got a full tuition scholarship to Toledo School of Law, and
wow.
when I helped with that, they mentioned it personally when contacted about it. So.
Wow.
And I got a half tuition scholarship to University of Florida for law school.
Wow. Awesome.
Model UN helped with that as well.
Model UN will definitely help me. I'm planning on graduating in December and either going to grad school. So it's definitely good.
Cool. Dr. Garrison, advisors, and have done a great amount.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for all the
Yeah,
support.
thank you.
This has really made a big impression on these kids.
Super. That's fantastic. So thanks again, you guys, and keep it up.
Oh, thank you.
Seriously, keep it up. And good luck in law school. And good luck in grad school or law school, whichever one you choose. We provide an opportunity for additional public comment concerning agenda items at the beginning of each meeting. It appears that no one has signed up to speak. Move on. Item 1626 is the approval of the minutes of the February 11th, 12th meetings of the board. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, they will stand approved as presented. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. The executive committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. Item presented for committee approval only, 1684 committee minutes. Items presented for information only were as follows. 1685 Dallas-Fort Worth update, 1686 campus master plan and construction update, 1687, tuition revenue bond programming plan review. 1688, facilities, Daniel rehab project review. Item tabled by committee for further discussion by the full board, 1689, capital expenditure plan MP1 report, fiscal 2017 through 2021. Then items approved by the committee and placed on the consent agenda, 1690, Texas Public Finance Authority MSU bond resolutions. Approved the resolutions as presented. 1691, Gun College of Health Science and Human Services building project approval amount. Approved the project at a cost not to exceed $38 million, 95% of the $40 million in funds available. Authorize the administration to contract with Randall Scott Architects at a cost not to exceed $3.2 million. Approved and authorized the administration to contract with Trinity Hughes Son as the construction manager at risk contractor, and finally authorize the president to increase the budgeted contracted amounts in an amount not to exceed 5% of the board amounts available funds for this project total $4 million. 1692, Texas Accessibility Standards ADA and Fire Marshal Upgrades Project. Project approval amount, approved the item as presented. 1693, Legislative Appropriations Request, LAR, authorize the administration to develop the exceptional item request as presented inclusion in the university's LAR. 1694, name the new residence hall, approved Legacy Hall as the name of the new residence hall. And finally, 1695, holiday schedules for staff employees, fiscal 2017, approved the holiday schedules as presented. I recommend approval of this consent agenda as presented. Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion?
I don't know if it's on the consent agenda. I want to talk some more about 1689.
We're going to come back to that.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to come back to that. Any further discussion? Do I hear a motion? Did I? Oh.
Now you have a second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so now we'll go back to item 1689, which is the MP1 report for fiscal 2017 and 2021, which was tabled yesterday for further study. Modified list has been provided to you. Dr. Shipley or Dr. Fillet, please tell us about the changes that have been made.
It was recommended that we change the order on the list, and the reason we had anything we might have to spend for the Fort Worth expansion as first is the timing for it. So the things that are further down the list are further in time from happening. It's going to be a while before any of these happen, and we have a sense of the timing. So it's not saying that the Metroplex expansion is the most important capital expenditure we have. It's just probably going to be the soonest that we spend money on that, and we wanted to make sure it got in people's mind this legislative session. So I wanted to be able to make that point in deference to your conversation. We put Bolin in front of that since we will be asking tuition revenue bonds this session, but we just wanted to keep the Metroplex close by because we're going to be asking for some kind of funding this session.
Jeff, you had a question.
Well, I'm still, and Suzanne, you partially answered it, but the order of each priority item still kind of bothers me. We're not even in the Metroplex yet, and it's number 2, which makes no sense to me. The Daniel building, we talked about that at length here, see how important that is. It's down here at 4. Student residence hall, we're building one now, so I don't know why that would be as far close to the top of the list as it is. Some of these items down here at the bottom, to me, need to move up. We've been talking about, for instance, say a university police station for a long time. It's desperately needed. It's way down the list here. The Hardin building, of course, we've done some repair to it, but I guess I have to sit down and put the priority I would probably personally have on these and present, but I think this is still out of whack. That's my 2 cents for it.
Okay. Anybody else have a question or comment?
If we do receive the money, does it have to go directly to whatever we requested? for example, if we receive the 5 million, does it have to go to the Metroplex? Is it earmarked that way, so you do have?
Yeah, so keep in mind, as we talked about yesterday, this is projecting out 4 years, okay? And so as we talked yesterday, the last 4 or 5 MP1 reports we filed have been in a state of revision as during a period of time. This is a placeholder. This is a situation. What we're trying to do, and as Suzanne has pointed out, this board has heard this conversation. This is kind of the order which we put this. And so at the end of the day, I hear what you're saying, Jeff, but I mean, look, if it was my choice, I'd put the football stadium first because I think that accelerates everything you do on campus. But at the end of the day, that's not feasible. We've got so many other things we need to do, and as Suzanne pointed out yesterday, this campus cannot be under a state of construction for the next 10 years to the level that we're talking. It just can't. Now, there can be some construction going on, but you just can't do it all at once. You just can't function. The students can't get to class. And, I mean, actually, last night, Lori and I drove around the campus after we left dinner, and Lori made the comment. She goes, wow, there is a lot of construction going on. So, anyway, to answer the question, as Marilyn properly said, if we ask for the money for this, that's what the money is for. So. Anybody else?
I just have a question, number 6, the new student resident hall. Is that a second one, or is that the one we've got?
It's the second.
That would be an addition, a new, another.
Okay.
The 5 million, is that external to the LAR? Does that somehow include the LAR?
That's external to the LAR because the LAR is for operations.
So that would be 2 million for the LAR and 5 here. Yeah.
Yes, but I would intend to ask for TRB funds only for Boland, and I have it listed. I just really don't want to buy a house or a building in the DFW area, and so putting it here in the event that we, to me, it's a placeholder because we can't do it if we need to, and we don't know how this is going to work out.
So is the priority, I'm a little confused now on numbering, is this a list of the order in which we think we're going to do them, or in terms of importance, which is what Jeff is?
That's how I put the list together. And he asked for Boland to be one. I don't see us doing Boland for a decade, perhaps, if it takes that long to get $20 million. But if that signals how important academic space is to us, I'm fine doing it. I think the next thing we'll be doing is something in Metroplex. And I think Daniel, as we said yesterday, can only happen when you move the gun college out of Bridwell, move student services into Bridwell, you've changed the order of student services in the student center, and then you can go the facilities then. So this is more timing than even my priority. I would like to do several of these sooner, but
If we're not going to raise $20 million first, I don't know why we would put it as number 1. I mean, I think I understand what everybody said, but I think we need to know what priority means.
Yeah, I think that's my problem. The definition of priority is what we want, what we think is most important. If I understand the definition of priority, if we're listing this in order of timing, we probably need another column for that. But to me, priority means what do we think is most important, and to me, that's out of whack.
in my experience, Regent Greg, and working with coordinating boards and legislature, it is unlikely they'll go down your list very far. And that's my problem. There are things more important that are happening later, but if we put the things we want next year at the bottom of the list, then they won't go that far. They'll say, why was that at the bottom?
That's what I wanted to hear.
I
Okay.
think it's a combination of priority and timing. It's a political document.
I guess. That's the answer I needed. Thank you.
Okay. So, do I hear a motion to approve the MP1 as modified? Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for the discussion. It was good discussion. Dr. Gibbons, please present the Academic and Student Affairs Committee report, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Academic and Student Affairs committee met yesterday. All our committee members were present. Our report is as follows. Item 16-96 is the committee minutes, and that item is placed for committee approval only. The following three items were for information only. 16-97, the faculty report. 16-98, the staff report. 16-99, the student government report. Items 16-107, 108, and 109 are tabled and were not considered in the committee yesterday, except for some information that was given. Item 16-100 was approved by the committee, placed on the consent agenda. May 2016 graduating class approved the list of candidates for graduation. We would request the following be on the consent agenda. 16-101, the admissions policy change. The committee approved the policies for students graduating from a homeschool program and from non-ranked high schools. 16-102 was the addition to the core curriculum. The committee approved the addition of History 2003 course to the university's core curriculum. 16-103, the addition of a minor. Committee approved the addition of a minor program titled Great Books. 16-104 was the change in title of educational technology major. The committee approved the changing of the title of this major to Instructional Design Technology. 16-105, approval of the 2017-2018 academic calendar. Approved the calendar as presented. 16-106 was housing and dining service rates. Approved the rates for fiscal year 17 as presented. Mr. Chairman, I recommend the approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, the committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. We will discuss items 16, 107, 108, and 109 in executive session later in the meeting. Go ahead, please, the next Finance Committee report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met yesterday. Our report is as follows. Item presented for committee approval only. 16-110 was the committee minutes. Item presented for information only was 16-111, summary of financial support. We had one item that was approved by committee without a unanimous vote, is therefore not placed on the consent agenda. At 16-119, budget discussion for fiscal year 17, tuition and fee review and recommendations. Items that were approved unanimously by the committee and placed on the consent agenda. 16-112, financial reports for January through March of this year. 16-113, investment report for the second quarter of 16. 16-114, fiscal year 16 items that were 50,000 and under. We ratified those budget changes. 16-115, personnel reports and changes in fiscal year 16 budget. Those changes were ratified. 16-116, new residence hall staff. For August 16, we authorized the addition of 6 staff positions. 16-117, budget for summer 16, we increased authorized funding for summer school of $200,000. 16-118, parking fee increase. We approved increasing the parking fee for students from $50 to $70 a year, effective with the fall 16 semester. Chairman Hessing, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Mr. Gregg, would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, the committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 16-119, tuition and fees for 2017 did not pass the Finance Committee unanimously. We will now consider it as a full report. In order to place the item on the table for discussion, can I have a motion to approve this item as presented?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any other discussion on item 16-119? Ledward?
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank the board because every item we bring up here always gets an open discussion, like everybody. Regarding this, I have nothing more definitive to say than I said yesterday. I just simply want to say in a public comment that I don't want the public to take these fee changes lightly, and I want them to know that we discuss them. with some angst, we increase the tuition because we feel like that's something we have to do with where we are and what is needed for the university. And my point is simply to say to the public how seriously we take these things and how regretful they are to us that we have to do this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I might throw something out there, maybe piggyback that, Sean.
Okay.
I'd like to, I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear somebody answer it. If we vote no to this, we would obviously have to cut some services, maybe some staff. What cuts would we be forced to make today?
With each of the increases, they're a source of funds, so it would, the cuts would probably have to be made in the area that the funding go to. For an example, the student services fee increase would have to go back to the student services allocation fee, and they'd have to rethink what they allocated the funds to. As far as the administration goes on the USF and the designated tuition fees, we have to go back and start considering, taking back some of the things we've been talking about. The health insurance is mandatory. There's nothing we can do about that. Pay raises to our staff. We might have to go back and rethink some of that. You have to kind of go back to the starting point. The Budget Oversight Committee took a long laundry list of things that the institution would like to see, and they took into account that and made very few recommendations of increases for next year. So I would say we have to we have to pull the Budget Oversight Committee back together and say, okay, the amount of revenue we have to work with isn't as much as we thought, and they may have to retract some of their priority items. So, I mean, it would be manageable, but it would take a little bit of work to go back to the drawing board.
But we'd be cutting basically essential services. Yeah. Okay.
There are some things that are mandatory. We don't have choices
Mm-hmm.
about it. That are mandatory to the state. Computer software licenses are mandatory. So in order to pay some of those mandatory increases, we would have to go back and start cutting other things in the budget.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Merrill.
Sure. Great question. Anybody else? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Sanchez, please present the Audit Compliance and Management Review Committee report.
Thank you, Chairman Hessing. The Audit Compliance and Management Review Committee met yesterday, and our report is as follows. Item presented for committee approval only, 16-120 committee minutes. Item presented for information only, 16-121, potential conflict of interest of Regents. Item approved by committee without unanimous vote, not placed on consent agenda, 16-123, Campus Carry Task Force report with President Shipley's recommendation. Item approved by committee and placed on consent agenda, 16-122, audit activities and compliance activities approved FY13 and FY15 audit reports and the FY16 audit plan. 16-124, MSU policies and procedures manual change. Approved new policy and changes to policies noted below. A, new policy 2.26, compliance and ethics program policy. B, policy 3.114, faculty performance review. C, policy 3.214, staff performance rating. D, policy 4.145, relationships with affiliate entities. 16-125, memorandum of understanding between MSU and the MSU Foundation Incorporated and MSU Charitable Trust. Approve the MOUs as presented and authorize Mr. Maka to work with the chairman to finalize the agreement with the MSU Foundation Incorporated. Chairman Hessing, I recommend approval of these consent agenda items as presented.
Would anyone like to remove items from the consent agenda for further discussion?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to talk about that.
Okay.
If not, the committee chair has recommended approval. Do I hear a second? Or do I hear a motion?
I make a motion.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, now, item 16-123 was removed from the consent agenda, Campus Carry. This item also did not pass unanimously out of committee, and we will now be considering it as a full board. Following our discussion yesterday, Dr. Shipley modified a recommendation and an updated copy, changed sections highlighted as in your folder. Dr. Shipley.
Well, go ahead.
Okay.
Ms. Barrow.
She edited it while I
Yeah,
posted it.
yeah.
So while, as Ms. Burks talked about yesterday, we removed part of the recommended policy that would allow for a locking device. And so we only included that a student in a dormitory would need to have secure gun storage as defined by this, the government code, but it has to be a gun safe, a safe, something like that. And I know the exact procedures will be outlined by the implementation task force. So.
Okay, so the only concern that I have now, in light of the change, and I'm good with the change. As I thought about it this morning, I thought about we need to, as a board, begin to think about what the consequences would be for students who are not compliant, and if we've even given any thought to that. There seems to be in the code a built-in mechanism in Chapter 46, which is if you carry a weapon on campus anywhere and it's not concealed, then that's actually a criminal act and property. So there's a built-in mechanism for that. So I'm not talking about the criminal aspect of it. And I hope that our police chief and our police department is in communication and coordinating with the DA's office here in Wichita County. I think we have to have a good understanding, what is going to be expected from them in order to prosecute, if any, cases that come out. But the other concern I have is just simply a school disciplinary issue, I suppose. If someone has a handgun in their room and they don't have it in a safe that we required them to have it in, what the consequence for that action? So, okay, right.
That would be a violation of our student code of conduct, and it would be referred to one of two conduct offices, our student conduct office or our housing residence life for conduct, depending on if the violation of the code of conduct occurs in housing or even somewhere else outside of housing. So it would be referred through the appropriate disciplinary office via our student code of conduct. I don't know the exact sanctions that would, because we consider every case individually because there are always different circumstances around, but it would be referred.
Okay. So the sanction, would it be like a gradual?
It's usually progressive depending, the first thing that we will do is determine responsibility for the violation. And if a student is found responsible for the alleged violation, then for the actual sanction we'll take into account the severity of it, the intent, and previous disciplinary history. So,
all right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So in order to place this item, or in order to place this item on the table for further discussion, can I have a motion to approve Dr. Shipley's recommendation as modified?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
So I want to make a couple of comments here. So first of all, I want to thank Ms. Burks for her diligence on this matter. I think it's really, really important matter. And I think it's something that we are not taking lightly. As Dr. Kidd pointed out on tuition and fees, we don't take that lightly. We sure don't take this lightly either. And it is important for us as a board to understand what this is and the ramifications of the campus. And so, Ms. Burks, thank you. It is really, really important. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16-127 will be postponed until later in the meeting. Item 16-128, the President's Report, discussion of higher education issues. Dr. Shipley, your report.
Thank you. And Ms. Berry has been chanting less is more, so this will be fairly brief. I just want to come back and we're working on it. Just want to come back to the, probably one of the most influential days I've had since I came here was my day at the legislature, where I got to hear how the Senate committee and various politicians and various higher ed officials felt about student affordability. It was a dynamic day that started with, was it the Attorney General?
Lieutenant Governor.
In the state I came from, the Lieutenant Governor was the Attorney General, but whatever. The Lieutenant Governor spoke about affordability in higher education, and then there were several, the chair of the Higher Ed Committee for the Senate had a time to talk, and then it was a very good way to learn about what the topics around affordability are. So I thought I'd just list a few of them. The marketable skills piece, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board is focusing on marketable skills. Many such coordinating boards are doing this. They're saying you need to show the value of your degree to the student, to the parents. This is tied in part to something that Regent Gibbons and Regent Gregg spoke of yesterday, which is the for-profit market. For-profits were charging very high tuitions, and they had very low graduation rates. And in particular, the tuitions did not match the future anticipated earnings. So at the federal level, there is a lot of legislation being considered to tie student loans that are supported federally to future earnings, so that if you want to be a teacher, you don't loan out $100,000 knowing that it's going to take you 20 years to pay it back. For an MBA, you might consider a loan like that. So when the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board talks about marketable skills, what they're going to be working with the academic side of our house with is tying marketability to every degree. And that is not just a capitalistic filter. It is saying if you study mass communication, you have the following careers available to you, you master the following skills. If you study history, if you study English, if you study business, the health professions, these are the marketable skills you can leave with, and we are aware of those as we teach you discipline and as you master the discipline. So tied to marketable skills then is the student debt. We were all asked, what is your average student debt that students leave with? How does that compare to the national average? The national average is $23,000 to $24,000. For state institutions, and we're below 20. I think we're around 18,000, which means that by the time the average student graduates, they could have accrued $18,000 in debt. That's variable for every student. Some students leave with no debt, some students. And then they want to know what's your default rate. The default rate is the rate at which the institution has to pay the loans that the students don't pay. So in today's paper, you saw an editorial about Purdue using its foundation to loan students the money to offset the price of tuition. Well, if a student defaults on that loan, then the Purdue Foundation will be held accountable for that debt. If the student defaults on federal loan, it can be held accountable for that. And our student default rate is 7.8, which is very low, and we track that very carefully. That's a good indication that students who are loaning out money, who are borrowing money, are able to pay it off and are probably engaging in careers that allow them to do so. So we have a really good story to tell in the earnings associated with the careers that our students major in, telling us what in the top 10 of universities in Texas, private and public, in the earnings our students leave. Right after SMU, I think number 8 or 10. It's a very good story to tell. We need to spend more time telling it. The next topic that was raised was administrative overhead, and the senators want to know, and are going to want to know in the future, what percentage of your operational costs cover administrative expenses. They'd like that for the smaller institutions like us to be below 10%, and for the larger systems below 5%. And that's because the systems can take a lot of their administrators and put them in a systems building and put them on a systems payroll, and they're not counted as administrators on campus, whereas we don't have that ability. The smaller campuses don't. And we also have less overlap. We have people doing multiple multiple roles, but you have to have people doing admissions, you have to have people doing X, Y, and Z. So a smaller institution is likely to have more administrators rather than fewer. So I'm happy to say that when I asked Marilyn to pull our administrative overhead, although we were over 10% now, this fiscal year, 10.8, with some of the changes that you've helped me make this year, we're going to be at 8.5. So we are going to really work on uncovering what our administrative costs are when we talk to you at our budget retreat or our budget tutorial this summer. We'll try to unfold that more for you so you see more detail about what constitutes administrative costs. The growth and expansion for economies of scale just ties to the fact that if you're larger, your administrative costs are spread thin, and we're not going to be that large that soon. Not a lot was said about collaboration with community colleges. It's deeply embedded in the Texas Coordinating Board's goals for the future. Some institutions are doing it. Tarleton is doing it, has done it well. You see, I think you sent the article, UTA and other large institutions are doing it, and I think it is the pathway of the future. There's going to be so much attention on time to degree. We are going to be asked to graduate more people more rapidly, less waste in their budgets due to taking the wrong classes, falsely advised, and partnering with community colleges so that there's a seamless transfer is a great way to save students. And finally, they mentioned reaching out to multiple stakeholders for support, and we can tell such a great story that when you look at the 25% of our 25% increase in scholarships and the way our discount rate is so healthy, 23% of a student's cost is defrayed by scholarships, we are reaching out to the feds, to the state, to our donors, to defray the cost of higher ed for our students. And we mentioned yesterday that by looking at federal grants like TRIO, we're able to further add to the marketable skills we create with students and to the services we offer. So I just wanted to be able to review that really insightful day and the wonderful things I learned and how much we will be applying those in the future and how we plan to keep up to date. And
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Shipley?
we got an A+ for our testimony too.
I heard.
They particularly like the fact that we have small class sizes, we have professors teaching students, and we have great student satisfaction.
Did I understand correctly that the university would be held, did you say the university would be held responsible for these federal loans?
Yes. Well,
Default on federal loans,
the
sorry.
default. Talk about how default works.
Sure. So our default, I'll answer that two ways. One is, I don't know off the top of my head if we were responsible for paying back. I can check on that, what percentage it would.
No, not paying it back, absorb.
Right.
The money that the student didn't pay us,
Right. Would be
that
absorbed.
doesn't pay us back, yeah.
Our, Dr. Shipley said our default rate is, I believe, 7.5% roughly. The federal threshold is, it's changed over the last couple of years. It's around 12, 13%. Is where what they are looking at for a default rate before they put you on any type of notice. So we are well below that, but yes, we would have to absorb that. Answer your question.
Yes, it does. Does that mean that we need to set up some kind of fund, a contingency fund for?
Well, I think
Otherwise it's going to come up as an increase in, it sounds like an increase in budget, an increase in debt, and it all would get hidden.
it's the price of doing business, basically. I mean, we've been absorbing this. Higher ed has been doing this balancing act forever.
So my question is, should we not be calling this out and seeing exactly what that is costing, rather than absorbing it across the board into athletics and student fees and everything else? Mr. Chairman.
It's a worthy request. You might want to take a look at that and see what.
And see where the distinction is between what the federal government absorbs,
Right.
what we absorb, what the loss is.
Right.
Okay. And there are a lot of costs like that we've absorbed in the past that we're trying to get out. So we used to have to pay for the cost of using credit cards. And did you do that before I came? That you charge now for use of credit
Yes.
cards? And so you see more and more universities as time goes by becoming more aware of business practices that are costing.
Right, but my understanding is we're not in charge of what the federal government might loan to a student, but yet we are going to be responsible for them defaulting on it and the services we provide. So it seems to me, since we don't control all that, it's not exactly the cost of doing business. You see what I'm saying?
I do, but I don't know that the dollar amounts are exactly aligned in that the exact rate that they default, we absorb, talking about in part penalties that you accrue from having a bad. So we'll do more research on that.
And I think it's important because as we grow, we want to make sure we manage that number properly. I agree with you. I understand it's not unilaterally tied together, but I think it's important for us to understand.
Well, on that, I'd be interested to know, because it would seem to me like, we talk a lot about adding degrees or minors, and it would seem to me that it would be, I'd like targeted information to know if it's coming from a certain college, a certain degree plan, can we get that? Yeah, that would be great to know, because then that way I think as a board, we could, and then at the university could kind of evaluate that.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Is
Yeah.
there
Go ahead, Jeff.
is there a financial penalty if we're not at that level? If we
We
surpass
no longer are able to have
We would,
the borrowing capacity for our students if we reach a certain level.
we would be, if, we're well under the threshold right now, we have been for a number of years, and we do much better than our peers. But with that, yes, if we cross the threshold, we would be in danger of losing the ability to issue Title IV funds, which is federal financial aid.
All right, thank you.
Jeff?
And I want to I think this fits here, and I think I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to make an editorial comment. We had to respond, I believe, a month or two ago to a request from the Texas Senate about our performance. And I just want to say it kind of irritated me that we had to respond to everything we're doing. Well, I think we're pretty efficient, do a pretty good job. I opened the paper last week and saw where the University of Texas is paying their defensive line coach $500,000 a year. That just went all over me. So anyway, next time they complain, that might be something to way to respond.
Maybe not.
Let's not do that.
Sean, yeah, I may be a little dense on this. I'm trying to understand how we absorb this, because if I understand the flow of funds, so what happens is the student borrows money from the federal people. We get the money. They default in paying the federal. What is it we're absorbing?
It is so complex, the financial aid. I'd really rather get back to you on that. I can track that for you, but I don't master the financial aid world, despite my significant intelligence. So we'll get that to you.
No.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Well, thank you, Dr. Shipley, for updating us. And I did hear through the grapevine that we hit a home run with that. So
Good.
Good for you for doing that.
Thank you.
Applaud that.
Good job.
the Board of Regents will now go into executive session to discuss item 16107, emeritus status, 16108, faculty promotion, 16109, faculty tenure, item 16129, university president's performance review, 16130B, real property, and 16130D, board officers, as allowed for the Texas Government Code section 551.072 and .074. For the record, it is May 13, 2016. The time is. Come back to order. Cindy? Are we? Good, great. Closed session is complete. The only items discussed were the items announced and no votes were taken. The open session is called to order. Item 16107, emeritus status. Is there a motion?
Chairman Hesse and I recommend the following individuals be granted emeritus status upon retirement from MSU. Dr. Ralph Fritz, thank you. Professor of Accounting, 32 years. Dr. Thomas Hoffman, Associate Professor of English, 48 years. Dr. Linda Hollenbaugh, Associate Professor of Foreign Languages, 27 years. Ms. Suzanne Key, Assistant Professor, Academic Success Center, 13 years.
Thank you. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this matter? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16108, faculty promotions. Is there a motion?
Chairman Hessing, I recommend the following individuals for promotion from the rank of associate professor to assistant professor to associate professor. Jeremy Duff, PhD, political science. Suzanne Lynch, PhD, curriculum and learning. Victoria Sanders, MSRS, radiologic sciences. Leland Turner, PhD, history. Linda Veazey, PhD, political science. Charles Watson, PhD, biology. And from the rank of associate professor to professor, Matthew Capps, PhD, educational leadership. Seguro Hirardi, an MFA art.
Perfect. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16109, faculty tenure. Is there a motion?
Chairman Hessing, I recommend the following individuals be granted tenure. Philip Blaylock, curriculum and learning. Leland Turner, history. Linda Veazey, political science. Charles Watson, biology. And Catherine Zuckweiler Stewart, management.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 16129, University President's Performance Review. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that Dr. Shipley's contract, the term of it be extended for one additional year.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this matter? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 16130B, real property. Is there a motion?
I move that the board authorize the president to work with the chairman of the board of regents to purchase a house and property located at 2527 Hampstead with a price not to exceed the independent appraised value of the property and the source of funds being unallocated reserves.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Before we adjourn, I want to appoint a nominating committee to recommend board officers for our August meeting. I'd like to ask Kevin Crosno, Nancy Marks, and Sam Sanchez to serve on this committee. Also, as a point of information, last summer we had a special budget workshop in June. I thought it was an informative session and gave us an opportunity to have a more in-depth review of the budget that we then acted on in August. Administration is planning to do this same thing this summer so that we can all be in tune with what the administration is thinking. As some of you know, Lori and I will be in Israel at that time, so chances are I won't be available, but please, you guys need to go because it's really a good session, particularly new board members. You guys will get a lot out of it. So Debbie will be checking with you on possible dates in the near future, so stay tuned for that, okay? This concludes our business today, and I know some of you will be at the graduation tomorrow. If you don't have your parking passes, please check with Debbie. Our next regular board meeting will be August 4th and 5th. This meeting is now adjourned.